My name is Diane Jacoby, and I'm honored to be the Georgia PTA Secretary for the next year. It's a 2-year term, so I'm halfway through. Whenever we talk about training or PTA, I always like to get grounded in our mission. And our mission for PTA is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. So that is, everything you do needs to be focused on that mission for the organization. So the secretary is elected by your membership and is one of 3 required officers in your bylaws. If you have not read your bylaws, you really need to do that because it helps lay out everything that your PTA is required to do, and in some aspects, how you should do that. But you, as secretary, you are the official record keeper of your PTA. You keep all of those important documents that get handed from administration to administration. The secretarial responsibilities can be assigned to one person or divided, and that you'll find in your bylaws. So you can have a recording and a corresponding secretary. Most local units, I believe, only have one secretary. And if you only have one secretary, then both the recording and corresponding duties fall to you. So your duties are listed first and foremost in the bylaws. Be sure to read those bylaws so you know that. If your PTA has some standing rules and policies and procedures, there may be further duties outlined or specifics to your duties put in those. You can find the Georgia PTA Leadership Resource Guide, which provides you with more details on how to fulfill your role as secretary, and also some guidelines and templates and other materials to help support you in that role. National PTA, if you did not know this, this is one of these benefits of membership. So one of the benefits of membership is that National PTA has e-learning courses that you can take. There's 3 that I would highly recommend that our secretaries take. One is the National PTA e-learning for secretaries. That's about a half hour of your time. One is on taking minutes. That's about 10 minutes of your time. And the third one is on parliamentary procedure, because as a secretary, you really need to understand how the structure and cadence and the language in a meeting, because you're going to have to capture some of that. And then, of course, we always, if it's not in the bylaws, if it's not in your standing rules and policies and procedures, if it's not in state law, then we default to Robert's Rules of Order. So how do you get started? Hopefully, if you are new to this role, the previous secretary handed you a notebook, which would have had previous minutes, all of those official documents, any audit or 990 that was the most recent 990 and audit that was done. In terms of the list of current members, if you don't have a membership chair, that falls under the secretary's duties. If you have a membership chair, work with your membership chair to get that current list of members. And I realize it's the beginning of the school year, so you're going to be building that list in the coming weeks and months. So these are the things that you need to make sure that you have. If your predecessor did not hand you a secretary's procedure book, you're going to want to build this, because then you're going to hand it off to the person who takes over your position when your term ends. So you, in addition to doing all those other things, you also are the right-hand man to the president. So first and foremost, ask your president what kind of assistance they want. They may want you to help put together the agenda. They may want you to help communicate to your board, your executive committee, and your board of directors about when meetings are and if there is a need for any agenda items. As the keeper of the minutes, if you have an agenda and you don't get to the end of it, then you want to make sure that you let the president know before the next meeting what all those unfinished business items are. When we can get back together, you want to sit next to the president so that you have all of those resources available for the president to reference during the meeting. And again, some presidents like assistance with the agenda. Other presidents just like to put the agenda together themselves. So that's something that you have to talk to your president about. So we said that there are two main duties of the secretary. There's the recording duties and the corresponding. So recording duties are during meetings, you record all of the business transacted, and then you present it at the next meeting. Those are your minutes. You want to make sure that you submit your officers to the state office via Member Hub. And if necessary, you update that throughout the year. So let's say that your treasurer suddenly gets transferred to Hawaii and you get a new treasurer, you want to make sure that you let the state office know by updating that information in Member Hub. You are the official keeper of all of those documents that have not been assigned to others. So if you don't have a membership chair, you want to make sure that you keep the list of the members. If you don't have a family engagement chair, you want to make sure that you keep any reports dealing with family engagement. You are the third in line. If the president and vice president are not present, then you call the meeting to order and you can chair the meeting. And at a meeting, when there's a count of votes, if it's a rising vote, that means that you just ask people to raise their hand or stand up to cast their vote. You count those. If there is a ballot vote, then you assist with the ballot vote in counting the ballot vote and distributing the ballots. And the corresponding duties of the secretary is just what it sounds like. You send notice meetings to board members or association members. If anybody has sent correspondence to your PTA or PTSA, it could be, for example, a thank you note from a group that you helped give volunteer hours to. What you're going to do is present that correspondence at board and association meetings so that the membership knows what correspondence has come into the association. You are going to work with the presidents to send any letters out. I want to make sure that you understand that the voice of your association is the president. They are the official speaker. They are the official speaker for the association. So while you may help draft a letter, it is the president who signs it and sends it unless they give that authority to somebody else. And then you keep on file all of those letters that are received and copies of the replies that are written. And this is helpful because sometimes you all might have somebody who gives a donation every year to your PTA or PTSA, and it's sort of nice to see what you have said in the past, because I'm not big on reinventing the wheel. If somebody wrote a really nice thank you note 4 or 5 years ago, I might take it and tweak it a little, but at least I sort of, okay, this is a good starting point. Now I don't have to start from scratch. So that was a lot of information in a short time. Christy, do we have any questions? Does anybody have any questions for me or about what we've been talking about?
The only question was, would a copy of the PowerPoint be available? And I said that it would be up on the website along with the recording.
Yes. Okay, so the bulk of your job is going to be at a meeting and around meetings. So the first thing that you do for a meeting is you have to put together an agenda. This is a sample agenda for a board of directors meeting. When you put it together, you want to make sure that all the information identifying who the meeting is by and for is on there. So here with the PTA, you'd make sure that it was your school's PTA logo. You can always put also a awesome school PTA above like the date or somewhere. Make sure that you know it's a board of directors meeting. You want the date, the time, where it is. And if it is a virtual meeting, you want to make sure that you have that meeting ID and password so that all of those people who are part of that body, the board of directors, the general membership, or your executive committee, know how to get into it. And so the agenda is just what you're going to be talking about during the meeting. And a well-crafted agenda helps direct your meeting and keep it on topic and on time. Because while we're all really excited and dedicated to helping our kids, we want to do it efficiently and effectively, right? We are not, these meetings are not about getting together and just having a social hour with your friends. This is a business meeting. You want to get through it. So that's what like a board meeting agenda looks like, or an executive committee meeting agenda looks like. As we are in the fall, you are going to be having one of your 3 general membership meetings. Your bylaws require you to have at least 3 general membership meetings a year. In general, that pacing and cadence for those meetings are at your first general meeting of the year is when you approve your budget for your general membership. At your second general meeting is when you will go and elect a nominating committee. And at your third general meeting is when you hold elections for new officers. Now, you do other business in those meetings, but those are the main purposes. And again, your PTA, you are working on behalf of the general membership. So you do things based off of what the general membership directs you to do, which is why you have to get the general membership to pass your budget, because that's what they want to spend the money on. So for your general membership meeting this fall, if you haven't held elections, you're going to need to hold elections. But if you've already held your elections, then this is what a general membership meeting agenda might look like. You will call it to order, you'll establish quorum. If you have a membership chair, this is where sign-in sheets and working with your membership chair works really well. To know how many people you need for a quorum, read your bylaws. Every PTA has a little bit different number in there. There are sometimes opening ceremonies for your general membership meeting. You want to make sure that you approve the agenda, because people participating in the meeting do have that ability to add agenda items. You're going to have to approve your previous minutes. There will be a treasurer and financial report. And because it is the first meeting of the year, your treasurer should be giving an audit report, and then you should have a proposed budget to present to the membership. Again, you are in service to the members of your PTA or PTSA, so you want to make sure that you give them a summary of what the board of directors has been doing. This is not a detailed transcript of everything the board of directors has done. This is that high level, above the trees overview of, here are some of the things that we've been talking about. This is how we're going to support our kids, our school, and our community. You can choose to have some of these reports of the committees. Again, it depends on what the focus for the year of your PTA is and what committees you have available. The other thing with reports is that you can ask the committee chairs to submit a small report, and you can attach it to the agenda or to a program so that people can see it. And the rest of them are pretty standard items like unfinished business, new business. I personally always like to add under information items a president's report, because sometimes that can be a good catch-all. If the president really needs to talk about something, or there's some information that your membership needs to know, the president can present it, and you don't need to be specific on what it is. On this next one with a program, there are times that our PTAs have PTA-sponsored programs. The main example I can think of would be a scholarship presentation or reflections awards. If it is a PTA program that you are doing in conjunction with a PTA meeting, then you want to include it in the agenda. If you have put your PTA meeting at the start of, let's say, the 3rd grade play, that 3rd grade play is not a PTA program, so it would not be part of your agenda. What you would do is you would not have that line that says program. You would do information items, announcements, and then you would adjourn. And then the school would present their program. Right? Does that make sense? And this will also be out there. I actually have templates for this so that you can plug and chug. Are we good, Christy?
We do have a couple of questions. Angie,
Okay.
and she may have to unmute to clarify, but she said, can you repeat those 3 things? So I'm not sure exactly what she was talking about.
For the three meetings?
Yes, the 3 meetings.
Okay, so again, there'll be additional business, but the main points of business that you're going to cover in those 3 meetings, the first one is to deal with your financials. So that's voting on the audit report and the proposed budget for the school year. The second one, which generally takes place in like January, February timeframe, is to elect a nominating committee for your elections. And then the third one, which happens anywhere from March to April. Again, read your bylaws. It will tell you what month you hold elections in, is to hold those elections for the next round of officers.
Did that answer, Angie?
So,
And we-
but
Thank you.
you're
Okay.
welcome. My pleasure.
And we had another question, and it reads, do we have to have a password for our executive board meetings? Do we want to use Google Duo for the 5 of us on the board? Do we have to use Zoom?
You are not required to use any particular platform. One thing to remember about these meetings, and as we get into the minutes, that your meetings are only open to the people that are on that body. So, for example, your executive committee are your elected officers and your principal, and so your general membership and the rest of your board of directors doesn't attend your executive committee meeting unless they're invited. Your board of directors is your executive committee and your standing chairs. So that would be your membership chair, your legislative chair, your family engagement chair, and any other standing chairs that you have. That is your board of directors. Again, your general membership's not invited to it. So saying that, while you're not required to have any particular platform or any passwords, when you do send out the meeting invites, you're not sending it out to the general membership or the full board of directors. You just want to make sure that you focus that invitation and that information to the people who are part of that body. Okay. Did that answer that question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Are we good to go?
We're good to go.
All right, thank you. All right, so what are the minutes? The minutes are really important because they become part of the financial audit, and they're also that documentation and that history of your organization. So people can go back and see what has happened in your PTA in previous years. That being said, it is a written documentation of what was done at a meeting, not what was said. So that's to say, you're not writing a novel. You are not a court reporter. You are not doing a transcript. So you're going to try to keep it to just the facts and short and sweet. So what does belong in your set of minutes? Just like your agenda, you're going to list what type of meeting it is. You're going to make sure that the name of your association is on there. You're going to make sure that the date, time, and place is there. You are going to have the list of who was in attendance. And if it's a board or executive committee meeting, you want to write down who had excused absences. And then you're going to mark if you were present and if the president was present, or who fulfilled their roles if they were not, and who the title and name of the presiding officer. While generally the presiding officer is the president, there are times that the president is not the presiding officer of a meeting. So those are the things that you want to record. As you can see, it's very businesslike, it's very professional, it's very short and to the point. Here's some other things. This is continuing of what you're gonna have in the minutes. You want a summary of the treasurer's report. The treasurer should also be able to give you a copy of the full report that you will attach to the end of the minutes. So you don't put them in the body of the minutes, but you do put them at the end so people can see them. Other reports such as the budget, I will tell you right now that your life is going to be a lot easier if you and your PTA can set up a practice of all chairs have to submit a report prior to when they are on the agenda. So let's say that in October that you want a report from the membership chair, you should really try to get that report in writing from the membership chair prior to the meeting. So one, it can be shared with the rest of the board of directors so they can read it over and have any questions ready for the meeting. And two, then what you can do is you can just put a summary of the report in your minutes and attach the full report at the end. You're going to record all the motions that are made and some of the other parliamentary procedures that are in there. You want to make sure that you capture the name of the person who made the motion and whether it was carried or if it was defeated. You do not need the name of the person who seconded the motion. The other thing to remember is that if a recommendation comes from a committee, so let's go back to our membership chair. Our membership chair has presented their report and they have a recommendation from the committee that your PTA run a membership drive for November and call it the Turkey Trot, whatever. Because that motion came from committee, it does not require a second of your board. If there is a program, remember we talked about at the general membership meeting, if you have a PTA program like Reflections, you're going to mention that the Reflections program was there. And if you have handed out a program for the program, but if you've handed out something describing all the winners and everything, again, just make sure that's attached. You don't want to recreate the wheel. You want to make sure that you know what time it adjourned and you have to sign it. Because it is that legal document, because it goes with your audit, you want to make sure that your signature is part of that document to really just say, yes, these are the minutes of our association. So according to Robert's Rules of Order, your opinion is not in the minutes. You are to take just the facts, ma'am. I don't care if you think Turkey Trot is a stupid name, you don't put that in there. You don't need the names of seconders of motions. If somebody withdraws a motion, you don't need to mark that. And you don't need to put in any summary of comments made by a guest speaker. So if you, as part of your PTA program, have invited somebody from the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute to talk about education and finance, all you have to put in your minutes is we invited Stephen Owen from the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute to, and just leave it at that. Okay. This is a copy of sample minutes that are part of the National PTA, National PTA's training. But as you can see, they really aren't very long. So when you have the regular board meeting, you have the call to order, you put the list of attendees at the end, you say a quorum was established, the previous minutes are approved, and you can see it's just to the point and just the facts. How do you approve your minutes? If you go really old school, very old school is to read the minutes at the meeting and then approve them. Luckily, we have a little more options available to us now. Best practice, especially for your board and executive committee, is to email them out about a week before the meeting and tell everybody to look at them in advance. For your general membership meeting, especially with MemberHub, it is really convenient in that with MemberHub, only your members can access them because they have that individual login. So you can post your minutes up in MemberHub and then your members can read them and they're not available to the general public. It is good practice to ask people to submit corrections and changes prior to a meeting, because that way you as secretary can present to the body, these are the suggestions that have been made for changes, and you can address them as a whole instead of one edit at a time. So you make corrections by if they've already been printed, then you make them to the official printed minutes. If they're not printed, then you want to use Words or whatever word processing platform you're using. You want to use their review process where you can do strikeouts and bolds and that kind of thing. In your current minutes, so minutes are always lagging by a meeting, right? So we're having a meeting tonight. We have to approve the minutes from June. In the August minutes, it is going to show that the June minutes were approved as corrected. And that's all you're going to put in there. You're not going to list the corrections. You're just going to put June minutes approved as corrected. In the master copy, you want to circle any incorrect words. And especially if corrections are made after that initial approval of the minutes, you want to make sure that you date any of them. The minutes belong to the body that created them. So therefore, only the body that created them can correct them. That means the executive committee, the board of directors, or the general membership. That also goes for who can see your minutes. The body that created them is the body that owns them. So if the executive committee minutes, they belong to the executive committee. The board of director minutes belong to the board of directors. They do not get distributed to the general membership. You want to make sure that you prepare your minutes and email a draft to the president as soon as possible, because we want the memory to be fresh. It's easier if you get it as soon, like the next day or within the week. After the president has reviewed them, you can send them out to other board members for review. I personally find the easiest way to take minutes is to take that agenda that you've assembled and make a copy of it and call it minutes, and then just type directly into the agenda and just keep it going. This is where those touch typing skills come in really handy at times. Some other things for meeting logistics, and this goes especially for general board meetings and general membership meetings. You want to make sure that you have some blank motion forms available, and you can find those templates at National PTA, and I can also make sure that we put them up on our website. And the reason you want a motion form for people to write out a motion is it makes it very easy for the president or the chair of the meeting to read it back to the assembly to make sure that what the maker of the motion really wants the motion to do is captured. And then that makes it really easy for you to put it in the minutes, because you just copy it straight from the motion blank into your minutes. You also want to have ballots, because from time to time there will be the need for a ballot vote. I highly recommend having ballots on a couple different colors of paper, because sometimes you will need to take multiple ballots during a meeting, and that way you know if motion number 1 is blue and motion number 2 is purple and motion number 3 is pink, then you don't get the ballots confused. If it's all white paper, then the last thing you want is for the ballots to get confused. All right, what do you capture as part of a motion? So if James Olson's whole sentence was, because our third floor meeting room is not accessible to disabled members, I move that all meetings be held in room 141. You only need to capture what came after I move. So in the minutes, it's going to be James Olson moved that all meetings be held in room 141. I will say with this, one thing that I like to capture in meeting minutes sometimes is a rationale, because as we've talked about, our minutes are our historical record. And let's say that you're in a building and the PTA room is on the 3rd floor, that you're in one of those beautiful historic school buildings in downtown Atlanta, and your PTA room, the school is giving you one, is on the 3rd floor, but there's no elevator, there's no way for people to get up. For this motion in that case, I would actually add a rationale, which would be because the 3rd floor meeting room is not accessible. And the reason for that is, if people go back and read it later, they may want to know, well, why did we move to room 141 when we have this beautiful PTA meeting room on the 3rd floor? Because again, you guys don't want to keep spinning your wheels. You don't want to keep discussing the same things year after year after year, because that way you don't move forward. So that is a little bit left to the discretion of the secretary as to what rationale. Sometimes the maker of the motion will also ask that their rationale be captured in the minutes so that people understand why they've asked for that. That's a little bit discretion on you as a secretary. And as the secretary, you don't have to be silent in these meetings. If you want more explanation for the minutes because you feel it's something that's going to be necessary, ask the person to give their rationale. Ask the person to clarify what they mean. Talk to the chair / president about, is this really what they wanted? Or because you want this to be as accurate as possible. We already talked a little bit about how reports are really great to have, not just for you as the secretary, but man, it makes meetings move a lot faster if people submit reports. But if a report does come with a recommendation, then that recommendation is the motion. So by the direction of the resource committee, it was moved, and coming from committee does not require a second, and then you write out whatever the recommendation is. So there are times when a motion might need a amendment. Let's go back to that one that James Olson made about moving our meetings to room 141. And Christy might go, why don't, we never know how many people are going to have, and room 141 can only fit 10 people. Can we make the motion be that I move that our meetings be in a accessible room? And so you wouldn't include the part of having meetings in room 141. The final motion is, a motion was made to have our PTA meetings in an accessible room. And that would be the motion that is captured in your minutes. All right, that was a lot of information again. So let's take a pause because we got through all those taking minutes. And Christy, do we have any questions?
We do. Tommy wants to know, how are excused absences determined?
So that is usually in your bylaws, but in general, an absence is excused if the board member has informed the president and the secretary prior to the meeting, and the president has said they are excused. It's generally not a problem. It's just more of a communication thing, because part of the reason you want to know who's going to be at your meeting and who's not. I can tell you that it's very frustrating to schedule a meeting and then show up and not have quorum. Because if you don't have quorum, you can't conduct business in a board meeting or the executive committee meeting or even a general membership meeting. So if you have important business to conduct in your board meeting or your executive committee meeting, you really want to make sure you're going to have quorum. That's why you want to make sure that people get excused from the meeting.
Okay, we have another question, and it's from Dion, and she says, may you please confirm that the secretaries on the council level can use these same guidelines as local secretaries?
Yes.
So yes, these apply not just to local units, but also to council secretaries.
Council secretaries, I mean, these are very much based off of Robert's Rules of Order in terms of minutes as to what you capture. So some of it's a little bit PTA-ified, but folks, this is how I take the minutes for the state PTA. So the templates you see are going to be the ones that I use at the state level.
Okay, that's it. We've got questions so far.
Okay. All right, so keeping records. This is, again, history of your organization. You want to make sure they're accurate, concise, that they're permanent. They are the legal record. They do become part of the audit. You are going to want to keep a printed copy in a 3-ring binder. Robert's Rules is updating their guide. They're updating the whole edition, and they are going to be including more on electronics in terms of like electronic meetings, electronic record keeping, that kind of thing. They're a little behind the times, but I highly recommend that you make sure that you have a permanent electronic copy in a place that's owned by the association. So that could be Member Hub. A lot of our PTAs or PTSAs have their own websites, so there might be a place there for you to house the information. Some PTAs and PTSAs have a Google Drive or a Dropbox. You want to make sure that these items are somewhere that the next generation or the people 6 years from now can access and find them. Yes, you're going to want the paper copy, but we all know, especially for those of you that are younger, I mean, I'm old, but I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. They're digital natives. They don't get the whole, why do I need a paper copy? I mean, my one son just got a a credit card, and we said, well, you're going to need a checkbook. He's like, why? So the paper is going the way of the dinosaur a little bit. So I would highly recommend making sure that you know where you can keep an electronic copy of all of these things. All right, so that is Secretary 101, down and dirty, quick and easy. It really isn't that difficult, especially if you just can type during a meeting, so that you don't have to transcribe. Even if it's not perfect, at least if you capture the bulk of it while the meeting's going on, it makes it a heck of a lot easier at the end of the day to go back and get it. Communications, I'm going to go over really quickly. We are planning to have a full training on communications, but this is a little bit of PTA, communicating the PTA way. And I just want to make you all aware of some things. So,
Diane, I'm sorry to interrupt. We had one more question pop up.
okay.
After you talk about electronic. Is everything, if everything is on a drive, whether it be shared drive, Dropbox, Google, do they really need to keep a paper copy of it?
For right now, yes. You really want to keep a paper copy. Now that might change, but for right now, yes, because that makes it easy too for your treasurer to attach to the audit and all of those things. So yes. All right. What is wrong with this picture? These just don't look quite right, do they? So there's something called brand identity. And brand identity, we are really used to things having a brand identity and us being able to identify it really quickly because of color, fonts, shapes. We go back to this slide, you'll notice, like, you know, McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Starbucks, they're all the wrong color. If Coca-Cola wasn't in this font, then we wouldn't recognize it as well. That brand identity, these are the things that really help people recognize it in an instant, that this is this brand and this is what that means. So when you have a real positive reputation, when people see your brand, they know what that means. PTA is a brand. PTA has an entire visual and brand guide on how to do all of these things, on how to make your own PTA logo so that it can say your council or your state or your local unit. While these say PTA, they do not align to this brand. You'll notice that this PowerPoint is in this bright green and a dark navy blue. Those are PTA colors. Those are approved PTA brand colors. So as you are communicating for PTA, you really do want to be aware of what that brand identity is. By having that consistency, your membership and your community will really start to recognize when emails come from you, when stuff is up on your Facebook, which flyers are from PTA versus which flyers are from the school. And you want people to recognize your brand just by a glance, just by the colors, just by how you have structured your newsletters or whatnot. Christy, can you put up that link to the branding guide, the National PTA one, in the chat for me, please?
Yes, and I also have another question that has to do with
Okay.
electronic signatures and our for signed minutes that are electronic. Do you want to talk on electronic signature issue? You're muted, Diane.
I have no idea how I got on mute. I'm sorry. I have to admit, I cheat. I have a Surface with a pen, so I actually sign my minutes with my signature. I'm going to have to look into that for you in terms of electronic signatures. My first thought is that now, if you can actually like sign it so it looks like it's written in ink, then you've signed the document. If you're just putting in your name and calling it an electronic signature, that's not the same thing. So let me look into that for you, Christy, can you capture whoever's name it is, and we'll get that information out, please, on electronic signatures. I am going to default to, since Robert's Rules has not yet updated the Robert's Rules of Orders on all of those electronic things, that for now, even if you have to just print out one page, sign it, rescan it, and then add it back into the electronic minutes, that is personally what I would do, so that your physical copy is actually signed. Okay? All right. All right, we talked a minute ago about how the worst thing in the world is to call this meeting and have all these plans and then not have a quorum. So I really like the idea of something called nudge theory. When you tell somebody something over and over and over again, like our kids, you know, you get fatigued and hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And as adults, we don't like to be told what to do. So we want to nudge people in the right direction. As the secretary, what I like to try to do is about 2 weeks before we have a board meeting or an executive committee meeting is to send out an email to all the members of that body and ask, hey, we have a meeting. Hey, we have a meeting on the 24th of August. Do you all have anything you want for the agenda? And then I give a deadline. So we have a meeting on the 24th. I need something by Sunday if you want it for the agenda. Then I work with the president to put together the agenda. So on the let's say on the 19th, I might send out the agenda and say, here's the agenda for our meeting on August 24th, along with our last meeting minutes and the reports from the membership and advocacy chairs. Then on Sunday, the 23rd, I might send all that information again, the agenda and reports, and say, looking forward to seeing everybody at our meeting tomorrow night. Only once in that series of 3 emails or communications did I actually say, there's a meeting tomorrow night. We'll see you tomorrow night. The others, I was either providing information or I was asking for information, yet at the same time, I put that meeting date front and center for them. So it doesn't feel like you're being told, hey, don't forget there's a meeting. It's, hey, I need information from you for our meeting, or hey, here's information. I need information from you. Here's information for you. And then only once is it, don't forget there's a meeting. So that's sort of like a good rule of thumb, because if the only emails that you are sending out to your board or executive committee are, don't forget there's a meeting, don't forget there's a meeting, don't forget there's a meeting, people are going to be just like your kids and they're going to tune you out. And we don't want that. So communication works for those who work at it. There is an adage in the marketing and advertising industry that you need to touch somebody 7 times for them to get your message or do what you need them to take action. And that works for our PTA members too, not just our board and our executive committee, but for that general membership. So when you need them to do something, be come to a meeting, be to help distribute textbooks, to help stock the food pantry, you're really going to want to try to touch them as many ways as you can. We have great access through MemberHub. MemberHub can be used to email and send out your newsletters. One of the really great things about MemberHub is that you can split out your members so that if you know that, oh wait, you know, the 5th grade dance is coming up. Let's cross our fingers that we can have a 5th grade dance in the spring. Then you can send a notification to just the 5th grade parents. If you have if you have a scholarship for seniors, you can send out an email just to the parents of seniors saying, hey, our scholarship is available. School marquees are always a great way to go. Social media, and I will be honest with y'all, I don't know what all these icons are. Hopefully some of you do, but social media is a great way to go. You can always go old school and post things on the bulletin boards. For your general membership meetings, I would highly recommend, once we get back to everything in person, that you do make sure that there's a physical notice of general membership meetings on a bulletin board, because people will start looking to that. A lot of our schools are using various types of text messengers. Remind is a good one. And so it's not a phone tree, but that same idea, contact people through their phones. We had a question the other night on the PTA in a pandemic about, like, how do we reach out to our members? How do we contact our potential members? This is a really good time for you to work with your principal and the administration about how you can partner to communicate important information to the membership. So while you have Member Hub, there may be times when your principal would really like help getting information out about a virtual training for parents about how to access the virtual platform for your school. But on the flip side, if you do that for them, you might be able to ask, hey, we're having our membership drive in your weekly morning announcements. Could you please mention it for us? This is where that partnership part comes in. Rub my back, I'll rub yours. Right. As you go and do social media and whatnot, just remember a picture is worth 1,000 words. We don't want to read lots and lots of words. You really do want to keep your messages short and to the point. I love City of Decatur schools. When they release things, they have a 10-word version, they have a 100 words or less version, and then they have 1,000 words or more version. So if you only have a couple minutes, you can read the 10-word version and get the gist of it. You can read the 100 words and get a little bit more, or 1,000 words. So bullet points are your friends. Take out the facts, put them in bullets so they stack and it makes it easy to see. Aristotle, this is paraphrased, but tell them again, and then tell them what you told them. Those 7 touches before somebody really internalize it. And you want to be consistent in your look, your style, and in your cadence. That's to say, if you get into the habit of you're going to first announce a general membership meeting with a save the date 6 weeks before the meeting, and then starting a month before the meeting, you're going to announce it every week, and then a week before the meeting, you're going to announce it every other day. You want to do that for all of your general meetings. You want to keep that cadence, that amount of communication, because we as human beings, we're creatures of habit. We get used to looking for and seeing things at certain times. If you send out a newsletter, you're going to really want to try to send it at about the same time every month, every 2 months. If you start posting to social media, again, try to keep it sort of consistent. It's not that you have to necessarily post every day. Just if you're posting once a week, try to post it on the same day. People get used to seeing these things and it will resonate more and become more internalized. And also, really read that branding and visualization guide from National PTA, because that will really help you set up. They've got some great tips in there on how to make some of your posts and things look good. All right, we are to the Q&A part of the presentation. And I'm going to leave this up here for a minute so you guys can write down my email address.
Diane, I'm not seeing any right now. I did post the link for the National PTA Branding and Web Guidelines, and
Thank
I'm
you.
also resharing the link to the Georgia PTA Leadership Resource Guide, LRG, and also to the Georgia PTA forums, where you have the motion forms and other forms that may need throughout the year.
And here's the thing, y'all, as you start going through this, if you discover that you would really like a form, or you would like some help walking through, email me. I am here to support you all. It's what you need. We're giving you this training. This is Robert's Rules. This is Nonprofits Boards 101. Now, there is a PTA way to do it, but if you serve on any other nonprofit board, they're going to have agendas, they're going to have minutes, they're going to have to keep the minutes for their audits, you're going to have to sign the minutes. This is all basic stuff, but it should not, you should not feel overwhelmed by it. You should not feel at a loss. We're here to support you, and I really do want to make your job easier. So just let me know what you need. Email me, and I'm happy to help support you any way you can.
Okay, now I'm beginning. Okay, so Angie wants to know, are there recommendations for motions and voting in the virtual world?
So it works the same way as in the real world. You ask people, so voting is much easier if it's a voice vote or a roll call vote. So what you would do is if we're here, it would be, Christy, do you vote? You know, Christy Flowers, how do you vote? Dawn Stasny, how do you vote? Diane Jacoby, how do you vote? You know, John Doe, how do you vote? And then you could mark it that way. Depending on what platform you're using, you could ask people to raise their hands. There are some platforms that have polls, so you could set up a poll for voting, which would be more like a ballot vote. Now that's within like board meetings. Board meetings, a lot of times too, there's a voice vote, or that motions are sort of passed by consensus. You know, does everybody agree that we should move our meetings to a handicap accessible room? Yes, it's a consensus vote. In terms of your general membership meetings, if you are holding an election with voting, there are going to be a couple different ways to do that. And before I really talk about that, I want to talk to our bylaws chair and have him help weigh in on that, because I know that he's been looking at what are the most viable ways to hold the elections and have voting. And I don't want to give you guys information that's going to go against your bylaws. If you're having a general membership meeting and you're having an election and it is an uncontested ballot, you only have one person for each position, then you can do that by a voice vote. All in favor of the slate, say aye. All against, say nay. And the ayes are probably going to have it. So that's where I would go with that. And I'll make sure to reach out to the bylaws chair to see if we can get some guidelines for general membership votes.
Okay, Diane, the question also was asked, where exactly will the recordings be posted on the website? And so I've shared them with everyone, the link in the chat where the PTA University files, training materials are posted and will be posted.
Okay.
I think that is it with questions, unless someone else has one that they haven't had answered.
All right. Feel free to reach out, djacoby@georgiapta.org. Again, thank you for all you're doing. Let us know how we can help, how we can support you. And I hope you and your families all stay safe and healthy. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. There we go. I removed her.
Okay, I was going to put her in the waiting room.
I'm not polite that way anymore. We're done. So.
Well, I understand that, but I learned that from the last meeting where I kicked you
Removed.
out
Yeah.
and you couldn't get back in. So you put them in the waiting room. So I have saved the chat and written down Wendy's question about e-signature. So keep in mind, we have an electronic signature law here in Georgia that was passed in the early 90s.
That's valid.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Jim actually helped write it. And
Hmm.
Dad and Jim helped write it. So yes.
All right. Well, we can follow up with that. I mean, the other thing is we also have a law in Georgia that says that the members can see the board's minutes.
Right.
So, but here's the thing is that with those e-signatures and all, it's just, they're still gonna have to have a paper copy. They may as well just sign the paper copy. So,
Well, what we've had a situation with one of our schools where the treasurer actually used DocuSign to sign the forms.
mm-hmm.
And her point was that is electronic signature, and sending that form to have them sign it, you know, when she signed it after as the treasurer, that was legal and sufficient. And all I'm saying is as we get these younger,
Right.
more technology savvy, techno savvy type folks, that's just going to be the question that we run across. So
Yeah,
I'm,
we're going,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, is it certain, does the law require a certain platform of electronic signatures? Like what constitutes an electron? Oh, we're still recording. Need to stop.